To comment during the Frankly Speaking show, you first need to open the video that is being streamed live. Look for the chat box on the side or bottom of the video player. This is where you can type your message. Click inside the chat box and use your keyboard to type out what you want to say. You can type words, use emojis, or even ask questions. Once you've typed your message, press the enter key on your keyboard or click the send button.
Good day. Frankly speaking, the legislative and executive teams are now in place following the victory of the Andrew Holness-led JLP in the September 3 general elections. Before we get into our agenda today, on behalf of our team, let me say congratulations to Shelley and Fraser Price for her contribution to the silver medal won in the 4x100 meters relay today and her stellar career in the Jamaican colors. Thanks to our team that garnered 10 medals in the World Championships in Tokyo. And depending on how you calculate it, that placed Jamaica third overall. Now, the full Senate was appointed, 8 members from the opposition PNP and 13 from the government JLP. And then the 63 members of the House of Representatives, 35 from the JLP and 28 from the PNP were sworn in. Before that, of course, came the 19-member cabinet, including Prime Minister with his Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development. That was followed by the naming of 13 ministers of state or junior ministers and 1 parliamentary secretary. Well, we'll take a look at the executive and, frankly speaking, consider what it means. Then we return to the troubling state of pensions in Jamaica. We'll have a trade unionist, Vincent Morrison, and licensed financial advisor and retirement specialist, Grace McLean, as our guest for that segment. Thank you all for joining us on the Frankly Speaking Jamaica podcast. Please subscribe if you haven't done so as yet. We welcome your comments and questions during this podcast. Please send your comments and questions by following the instructions that are given at the top of the show. Welcome to our regular panelists, Desmond Richards and Winnie Anderson Brown. Special guest for this segment on governance is Professor Anna Perkins, and we'll start with her. But before that, Winnie, can you read the list of cabinet members for us? And just before we go to Professor Perkins.
Yes, I can. Okay, I'm not seeing it on the screen. Let me bring it up. It's not yet on the screen. Oh yes, here it is now. Okay, so we begin with coming. I see deputy, but I think the first one should be the Prime Minister. Okay, I'll read it as is. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security and Peace, Dr. Horace Chang. Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Mrs. Favour Williams. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith. Minister of Tourism, Mr. Edmund Bartlett. Minister of Justice, Mr. Delroy Chuck. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton. Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Ms. Oliver Babsy Grange. Minister of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, Senator Dana Morris Dixon. Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Senator Aubin Hill. Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Mr. Desmond Mackenzie. Minister of Labor and Social Security, Mr. Pernell Charles Jr., Minister of Transport, Telecommunications and Energy, Mr. Daryl Vaz, Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, Mr. Floyd Green, Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change, Mr. Matthew Samuda. That's
Thanks, Winnie. And the first one, as you rightly said, was the
yes.
Prime Minister.
Yes.
That was the first. He was the first in the list. So we turn to
Okay.
Professor Perkins. Professor Perkins, thank you for joining us. Give us your sense of what this cabinet means, and well, just give us your sense of what it means and your feelings about it.
Well, for me, the immediate thing that jumps out is just the number.
Sorry, not hearing you.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, the immediate thing that jumps out at me is just the number of cabinet members and how huge the cabinet is. There's a piece that's done in Wired.
Is everybody else hearing Professor? She sounds low to me. Professor, I wonder if we can try to pick up the volume a little bit. We're hearing you, but not so clearly.
I put the volume all the way up.
Okay.
That's better?
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And the piece in WiredJamaica.com did a very nice mathematical working out of what this is costing us as Jamaican people, and that we're looking at almost 700 million Jamaican dollars for this very bloated cabinet. And the fact is, whether they are members of the cabinet, their junior ministers, including the cabinet, or their parliamentary secretary, or they're the Speaker of the House, or Deputy Speaker, so on. Every member of parliament practically who won for the Jamaica Labour Party is now sitting in the cabinet or somewhere like that. Only 5 of them are backbenchers. It's rather frightening. I
think it's only 3 or 4 not there.
Absolutely. Isn't that frightening? So everybody's seeing, listen, we have to recognize that we're there to serve the people, right? And so in serving the people, some of what has to happen is that we have to have the kind of prudence around how we use the people's money, right? And most of the people now who are earning top salaries, we have to recognize in Jamaica, will be sitting in Parliament. Will be members of our cabinet. Isn't that frightening?
Okay, so but the members of the cabinet, except for the special arrangements with the Senate, would come from the list of members of Parliament, except for those 3 or 4 other special arrangements. So you are saying, are you saying is it too big, or are you saying the cabinet is too big before looking at what talent that they might bring to it?
What talent are we bringing? I'm sorry, I'm not really seeing any renewal or very little renewal. A lot of the people who are there were people who were there before, and then what they've also done is brought in people who were out in the wilderness for a little while and given them state positions and so on. So I'm not convinced of the renewal that they claim is part of what's going on. You know, changing of a name. So the listing that Winnie read out, where they mentioned the Ministry of Justice, they forgot to include Ministry of Justice and Constitution, which is now rolled into one under Mr. Chuck, or where environment and water and so on are standalone now under Matthew Samuda being given his own ministry. But yeah, okay, I hear you. I'm not feeling very impressed.
Okay. I hope and I'm sure that we will be hearing more about what's happening to that, the Constitution Affairs thing, because quite a few people are pointing to that. But let me bring in Desmond before we come back to you, bro. Desmond, how do you feel about the cabinet, the executive?
Well, I hope the Jamaican people who voted in the Jamaica Labour Party will know that in spite of the fact of the economy, the government presided over almost 9 years of very little economic, almost zero economic growth. And remember that this government promised us 5 in 4. Remember that promise? In spite of presiding over low economic growth, the government has decided to ensure that its members are paid. Nearly $700 million will be paid to the members of the Jamaica Labour Party who won this election. It is a reward. It is party loyalty. Now, what are we going to get for it? Are we going to get those people in Jamaica who, as we speak, don't have water? Are we going to get better health services for thousands of Jamaicans? Are we going to get better transportation? Are we going to get policies and programs that is going to impact the improvement of lives of the majority of the people? Are we going to get land for the landless? What is going to be done about extra police killing, judicial killings? We want to know what will be the reward, what will be the value for this excessive amount of money that is going to be spent paying Jamaica Labour Party members of parliament.
And Desmond, let me just probe that a little bit. The JLP won the elections. They have the right to form the government, the cabinet, the executive. What would you have liked to have seen? What size executive you think would have been appropriate? What size executive, what size junior ministership?
Well, for decades now, we have been talking about Jamaica, about the size of the cabinet. I remember the late Professor Stone, the Professor, not Stone, I just Nettleford, yes, right. Nettleford, right. And what we have to look at, from my perspective, what we have to look at is don't compare Jamaica with other countries. We must look at what we have, what we are dealing with. And therefore, I am saying that with an economy growing at almost zero, with so many services.
Near to 1% than to zero.
Yes. And with so many people homeless, the needs of the people, I am saying that we should look at what is more affordable. Look at a cabinet, look at a public service that is going to cost less and make money available to provide services for the people who are voting. Why the political directorate don't pay attention to the people who are voting in elections? What about them? You mean
right.
MPs and only members of parliament are going to benefit from? Only members of parliament are going to benefit from this election. I am watching to see what the government is going to do for the people. That is my concern.
And that is crucial. Winnie, you had some thoughts on the speaker.
The Speaker of the House. I must say that I was very disappointed that the Prime Minister chose his wife again, and I'm wording it that way. Why? Before she became the Speaker, after her colleague resigned, the Speaker resigned. Right. When she resigned, I was one of those who said, she is qualified. She was Deputy Speaker. She won her seat. She has every right to ascend to any office that she's qualified for. This is not about her now. The conflict of interest became very clear to me the day the Prime Minister walked out of the house. He did not walk out as Prime Minister. He walked out as Juliet's husband. He didn't even remember that he wore this other hat, because the governing party is not usually the one to walk out of the house. But because of what happened, he was objecting to what was said to and about his wife. He led a walkout. That was when it became very clear to me that the conflict of interest is not good for the Prime Minister, and it is not good for the country. So I am disappointed.
I know you said it that way, but for those of uninitiated, it's not the Prime Minister who chose the Speaker.
No, it's not. It's not. His party.
The Prime Minister who chose the Speaker.
His party.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
The Prime Minister does not by himself. He has a lot of power, but he does not choose by himself. But it's unfortunate that the Jamaica Labour Party chose.
Okay.
The Prime Minister
as the Speaker.
The Prime Minister is the leader of the JLP, and let it be clear in Jamaica's political situation. Let it be clear. The leader of the party members take instructions from the leader of the party. Let that be absolutely clear.
And that's well known on both sides, Desmond.
Yes,
okay.
It's just a protocol of it, and just to be correct.
Yes, Professor, I want to come back to you with regard to the signal that the size of the cabinet might send. That, but also the cabinet makeup itself. What's your view on the makeup of that cabinet itself? You have already said that you suggest that it's excessive. But what about the idea that it's going to be it's carrying forward some plans, and the Prime Minister mentioned, for example, several things that
there are several things that he mentioned. So I think, for example, and I don't think there's anything wrong with us signaling a concern up front with the size of the cabinet, and this has been a continuous thing, as Desmond has pointed out, in terms of how we make choices, whether when it's the People's National Party and Push's size cabinet, and then now we know what's happened with this particular government and so on. But I think it's important to signal our concern. Now, what the Prime Minister is saying is that in the choices that he has made in the cabinet appointments, for example, he's signaling the desire for continued growth and prosperity, and that he has an agenda that he's carrying forward now that he has gotten this third term. So I think immediately, for example, he is talking about a ministry that has a part of it that says peace. So you're doing national security, but you also want to create, he says, a nation where people live together comfortably and peacefully. And you remember promises that he made in the past about being able to sleep with doors and windows open, and those kind of promises, one, not coming to fruition at all, no proper explanation being given, no metrics in place to measure how that should look, and so on. So are we getting another possible face card where you signal a change but nothing really happens? Or the concern with landlessness was raised, and he raised it, and he has a junior minister that's supposed to have responsibility for land titling, and housing is supposed to be a significant concern. So every Jamaican is supposed to be able to own a home and so on. We have to see how that plays itself out. Are we going to continue to raid the National Housing Trust, which has a mandate around providing loans and financing so that Jamaicans were earning and saving? Because essentially that's what the National Housing Trust is about. It's about saving. Are we going to raid the National Housing Trust and take billions out of it, put into the consolidated fund, and use it other ways beyond what the National Housing Trust was set up to do? So all of those concerns and questions are relevant. So I hear the signaling. And there's something called virtue signaling. You can make all those changes in terms of the names of the ministries. You can put good people in place. We can take our hats off to a young upcoming minister such as Matthew Samuda. And when he didn't have a ministry of his own, now he has been given a space to carry out and carry forward some of the work that we saw him attempting to do in a more junior portfolio. Plus the virtue signaling happening. Let's see what happens when the rubber hits the road.
We're coming back to you, Professor. Winnie, I don't know if you want to take some of those comments.
Yes, I do.
Coming in, but Winnie,
yes, I do.
Start, I want to give you one which is coming on my WhatsApp to you directly, and you can respond to it. Person is asking conflict of interest. A conflict of interest occurs when an individual's personal interest, family, friendship, financial, or social factors could compromise his or her judgment, decisions, or actions in the workplace. Can Juliet's judgment as speaker be compromised simply because she is the wife of the Prime Minister?
Well,
that's for you to answer, Winnie.
Well, I spoke directly. I said, when the Prime Minister, it's not only on the speaker's side, when the Prime Minister walked out on Jamaica, that's when I saw the conflict of interest. It's on both sides. The Prime Minister may act differently because his wife is a speaker, and the speaker may act differently because her husband is the Prime Minister, and that's it. It goes both ways. It's not a one-sided thing.
But can we add to that, though, frankly, that conflicts of interest are also apparent conflicts of interest, yeah? So yes. you want to make sure that there's no appearance of a conflict of interest, and that has been signaled. And then sadly, the pattern in her first speakership showed that not only was it apparent, but it actually was an existing conflict of interest, because her actions really called into question her objectivity. And some of the parliamentary decisions that she made in terms of whether this report or that report should be tabled and so on, some of it would seem to clearly be attempting to protect her husband, who was under various kinds of scrutiny. We have to be clear. The conflict of interest can be apparent, but it can also be effective and in effect, and it's very much clear that that was the case with the speaker. And clearly the recognition of the impact of that on governance, and that's what we want, good governance, is really not being taken on board by this government at all, and I'm very sad about that too.
Winnie?
Yes.
Go ahead with your
Let me get back to those comments. Moses says, why are we sugarcoat? Why are we? I suppose. Why do we sugarcoat this without the Prime Minister? She will never be there as Speaker of the House. Nepotism and corruption of my beautiful country. That's Moses. There's another. Moses again says there is 10 people under investigation, and she was put back there to delay the process. That's what Moses is saying. When submission is made, that wasn't finished. When submission is made to Parliament. And there's another one from Aaron that says, with only 5 government backbenchers and a Senate packed with party activists, there is no check and balance, leaving the executive or government to do exactly as they feel.
Well, I would say, before you go on to the next one, Winnie, I would say with regard to that, and that leaves a space, a role for the opposition. And I think that there is a strong opposition in the House, very strong opposition in the House, when you look at it, and that they should relish the role of providing checks and balances and making it clear to the people what their alternative ought to be.
Absolutely, and they're there to hold the government to account. The government must be accountable, and because there's a must reduce margin of GLP MPs in the House, they will have less ease to carry forward their legislative agenda, I believe, without the kind of discussion and consensus that some of us would argue was not effectively demonstrated in the prior regime.
I like how you
Absolutely, with
say
a
less
49-14.
ease, less ease. But let's
Mm-hmm.
remember that the opposition objected to the Speaker of the House being either of the two ladies, and who is the Speaker of the House, and the
Right.
response. So that is a signal as to how things will go. Once it gets to the votes, you just vote. All the opposition can do is talk, and it's neither here nor there. They talk as much as they want, but the government was elected to govern, so they will just do what they want.
Really, I
It's
hear
going to be a
that,
little bit more
but
difficult
I
than
think it's
that,
going
Winnie,
to be
but
a lot more
time will,
difficult than yes.
I
yeah, time will
agree
tell.
with you.
Time will tell. You're right on the
Yes,
numbers. Numbers are going to count in most circumstances, but time will tell. Want to
To
take
okay.
assure
another
them calm,
comment there, Winnie, and
to
then we go
assure
back
them
to.
can't be missing from the house when they're important votes. If they're looking for 2/3 for vote to carry something, they're gonna have to have consensus and discussion
Yes.
with the opposition. You know, so there is that with the rebalancing that has taken place since this September 3rd election that we can look towards in a more hopeful manner. Because you don't want a true democracy really can't be as unbalanced as it was in the previous host. So there is hope, I believe, with this redress.
Winnie, you want to take from Aaron again?
Aaron, wasn't it what I read before?
Okay.
Aaron? Oh, no. Yes, no, it's a new one. He says, compare this with the British Westminster system, where there are 362 backbenchers and the MPs are not beholden to their party and can act in the best interest of their constituents.
All right. Okay. So before we wrap up this segment, because we're going to go on to pensions, I wanted Professor Perkins to give me a sense of whether the people now, as part of the governance, because we are focused there on cabinet, we spoke about the parliament. What is there for the people to be able to hold government to account as well? What is there for the people, Professor?
I think there's not sufficient to hold government to account. The way we have modeled our Westminster version, really what you have is the ballot box. And, every 5 years you put them in or you take them out. And that's why we do need to have constitutional reform that allows, for example, for more impeachment, the ability for us to impeach our members of parliament, for backbenchers and their bills to be given a lot more prominence so that the prime minister doesn't have his or her say in terms of what legislative matters move forward and come into the house. We want spaces where MPs have to hold town halls with their constituents and hear from them and craft information going forward that represents the desires of their constituents and so on. As things stand now, the opposition will have to more strongly take on board and listen, pay attention to the polls, pay attention to where people are protesting, pay attention, read stuff as simple as a letter that's written to the editor, and hear what it is that the people are saying. Listen to the talk shows, listen to podcasts like this. What are the people saying? What are their desires? What are what it is that they want? And then match that up against what the government has promised and hold the government's feet to the fire. That they have to be in the house representing the people as much as the government MPs are. That's my quick thought on that.
And there's a whole social media setup, and there are ways people can reach through, like you mentioned, get into the editor. But I'm going to read one for Desmond. Desmond, it's coming on my WhatsApp here before I ask Winnie to go back to the notes coming in. Desmond, this person says, give them a chance. You have lost, Desmond. How you respond to that, Desmond? Give
I have
them
lost.
a chance. You have lost, Desmond.
I don't know I don't know what chance we are talking about. The government was elected. The government has been in power. This is not a new government, This is a government that has been in power for 9 years. And we can see what it has done. So I am saying that what they have done now, they have made sure that their supporters, those who won elections, that they will go, they will walk freely to the banks, while the people who voted for them are left. Their services are there, and we want to know and are going to be looking out to see if the people's needs are addressed.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. Winnie,
Back with that comment, please, Joshua. That comment that was there. Yes. Owen Richards says, this just going to be round 3 of Jamaica corruption with exclamation marks.
oh boy. All right. Well, Professor, just before you leave us, I just want to mention that one of the things that I've noticed in the discussion that's taking place all over social media, traditional media, and among people on the streets and so forth, is that there doesn't seem to me to be an overriding exuberance about the selectees in the cabinet. I don't hear people saying, yes, I feel that this cabinet is going to be able to move the country in the way that the Prime Minister is talking about, get us the growth that we want, remove the absolute poverty. You know, I don't hear 1 or 2 mentions of
Yeah, people are saying, what are they going to do differently, Franklin?
1 or 2 like that. Your response to that?
I think there are some stars. I mentioned Matthew Samuda. I think of Dana Dixon, and of course I have to put my hand up. Dana is a colleague and a friend. I think that there are 1 or 2 persons in there that come with new ideas and could possibly do well in their particular ministry. But the truth is that it's same old, same old. What is new? What can they do now that they didn't do when they were given the opportunity before the last couple terms that they had? I think these are the questions that people are asking. I think the ones that are jubilant are probably the ones that are more sort of party stalwart, if you get the drift. I think many Jamaicans, signaled by the poor turnout again, are asking, what's the sense? Why bother? It's not going to change if it was this group that got back in, but if it had been the other group, they didn't see where they were inspired by that group either. And my concern has to do with where we're going with the Constitution. Are we taking constitutional reform seriously?
No.
The Prime Minister, when he was on the stage for debate, spoke for the first time. We had not heard this come up before, that he wants a domestic court. The top court must be domestic. Never heard that before. There are going to be some serious sticking points with the opposition around, for example, that particular constitutional matter, because we're funding a big court, spend whole heap of money, put it up, and then you're still going to want to go and continue to be colonial.
I'm sure we're going to come back to that, Prof. I'm sure we're going to come back to that and some of the other issues. But thank you for your insights and your thoughts. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Professor Anna
Right,
Perkins, Chief Professor of Caribbean Theology and Ethics at the University of the West Indies. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to continue with something that is before us and that we started last week. And we said, we've got to dig down a little bit more into this. Pensions. And we welcome again Grace McLean, and trade unionist Vincent Morrison. And Grace McLean is a licensed financial advisor and experienced pension expert. And Vincent Morrison is one of the deans of the union movement in Jamaica and president of UK's, that is Union of Clerical and Supervisory Employees. Welcome to you both. And Ms. McLean, may we just start with you and to ask you to remind us again, what's the state of the pension availability in Jamaica?
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. McKnight. A pleasure to be here. There is a retirement crisis in Jamaica. Approximately 20% of the working population contributes to a pension plan, and just about 1 in every 10 person actively participate, working person actively participate in a pension, which means although persons may have a pension plan, just about 1 in every 10 consistently contributes to a pension plan. So that is a worrying factor. And there's an advent of retirement schemes known as personal pension plans, and more persons and more companies are encouraging their staff to start a pension plan on their own. And if the companies don't facilitate salary deductions for these employees, you will find that not many will respond. And I do find, as a pension and retirement specialist, that a number of persons who contribute to the personal pension plans, they do so on their own without any contribution from the employers. And some of them, the employers refuse to facilitate a salary deduction for their
Okay,
pension.
let me just stop you there at the personal pension plan. I think we lost touch with Vincent Morrison. I'm hoping Joshua is trying to get him back. But let me just ask you, what about people who might be scared about putting down this money now over several years, and then wondering, will they be able, will that institution, that financial house, be able to pay me my pension 15 to 20 years down the road when I expect to get it when I retire? How secure would you say, Ms. McLean, is the financial system of the overarching architecture for pensions?
Well, the financial system in Jamaica is very stable, right? So there's a lot of stability and confidence in the financial system in Jamaica. And in terms of pension funds, persons due on retirement are able to get their pensions, right? The challenge I find is really with the government pensioners. Um, I do have clients and even persons who want to invest from their pension. And up till last night, one person called me, and he's a retired police officer. He retired over a year ago and he still has not received his pension. He said about 20 of them retired around the same time, and none of them has received their pension to date.
Yeah, that slackness has been going on for some time, you know. It just happens to
So it is worrying that you have police officers, and I say police officers because this particular person who called me is a police officer. So I asked him, how is he managing, how is he surviving? And he said he has a farm, and he had started that farm before leaving the force. So that's where he's getting income from. So it makes me wonder what happened to those persons, are civil servants who have retired over a year ago, but they have no backup plan. They are not fortunate like this retired officer who had a contingency. What is
Well, most
happening with
people
them?
can't arrange or afford a contingency. Most people expect that they put this pension or they put that
Right.
that they will get it.
So this is why I have always said it's important for persons. Retirement planning is not just having a pension plan. You know, it involves far more. And this is why I encourage persons who have a pension plan to speak with an experienced and licensed financial advisor who can guide you every step of the way. The law, pension plans are protected by law, you know. It's not like a regular investment where it's more risky in terms of you not getting what you had put out, you had invested in. Your pension is protected by law, right? So when you invest your money, yes, there's a risk in investing your money in a pension plan, but the risk is less than if you were to say, okay, I don't want to have a pension, I'll just invest my money myself for retirement. right?
In your experience,
You're required.
I got this question earlier from somebody who was asking me to make sure I asked it. In your experience, what proportion of the salary, the personal pension plan that we're talking about, what proportion of the salary and for how long makes for a good pension? What proportion of the salary and for how long should that contribution be made makes for a good pension?
They're not hearing me. The internet went.
We're hearing you say that.
Were you hearing me?
You're hearing me now. Okay.
Yeah, we heard you.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You were hearing me all this time. Okay.
Yes, saying that the internet went.
I got some
Yes.
indication from my end that the internet went. So.
Okay. So did you hear my question?
No, you can repeat, please.
Okay. What proportion? This is a viewer from last week was asking. What proportion of the income in the personal pension plans now should be put towards the pension, and for how long to make for a good pension?
Whether it's a group pension or individual pension, the law requires that the maximum that you can contribute to a pension is 20% of your gross salary. So for the self-employed person has to estimate what their income is for the year and then calculate 20% of that, right? When they file their returns, they would have been able to show that they contribute to a pension, and it helps them in terms of a tax benefit, right? So when I meet with clients, I normally recommend don't stick with the minimum 5%, right? And even if you can only afford that, try and increase it over time. Because when you retire, you don't want to be getting minimum wage.
And how long should the person be considering that they must be paying this pension? Whether it's the personal or the group pension.
Okay, normal retirement age is 65. I do recommend that persons contribute all the way until age 65, unless it is that you have been investing early on and you're financially secure. You want to retire early because your finances are in good order. Then you can decide to retire at age 55. But remember also that retirement can happen at any age. If you have an accident or you're diagnosed with an illness and you cannot work anymore, then retirement is immediate. And this is what I think a lot of persons are failing to understand. They think that retirement is down the road. And they figure, and so persons in their 20s and 30s sometimes figure that they have time to start a retirement plan, and so they're interested in just not doing anything and putting it off, not recognizing that one accident, one critical illness can send them home and be dependent on family members, right? So it's important to start from your very first job. Start contributing to a pension. If it is that
Start from when? Start from what age you're recommending? Start from when?
Age 18. Age 18. The law says age 18. As long as you are working and you're a resident of Jamaica, then you can start a pension plan right here in Jamaica.
And you recommend that start as early as that?
Yes.
As early as, right, because you will have more money when you retire should you do that.
And what happens to people now who are in a, let me throw this one at you now. What happens to people who are in a job which comes with a pension scheme, pension arrangement, and they are paying that, they're dealing with that pension, but then they move on to a job where there's no pension? What happens?
Okay. All right, there are different options.
So you understand? You're paying pension for 4 years, and then you leave that job or you get fired from that job, and you go on to a company where there's no pension.
Okay, so it depends on what pension the person had before. So if you're working with a company and they have a group pension in place, if you're vested, you won't get the vested portion, which means the company is saying, after working with us for X number of years, you're entitled to a pension from the company, regardless of how long you work with that company, because they have a stipulated number of years that you should work for the company. So once you reach that stipulated number of years and you decide to leave that company and go elsewhere to work, you will still get a pension from that company. No, if it is a group pension that
sorry, Ms. McLean. I just see
Right.
Vincent Morrison there, and he's been having lots of trouble getting on with us. Welcome, Vincent. I just have to ask you this very quickly. How
Thank
do
you.
you see the pensions field in Jamaica today? How do
Well,
you
you know, we have a working population. Labor force is about nearly 2 million, and it's about what, less than 20% that have pension, and the
that's what Ms.
quality of the
McLean
pension,
reminded us of?
the quality of the pension is not like, you know, the company is throwing pension and matched by the workers, vice versa. You hardly have that now. Is the worker doing the individual situation. A lot of the pension schemes were smashed when we had the meltdown in 2010 or thereabout. A lot of the schemes were smashed. The management closed down the scheme, fight the workers for the surplus, huh? And what we're trying to do now is see how we can rebuild. But what a lot of companies doing now, for example, recently, Separate wrote to us saying that they want to start a pension scheme by themselves. Call it separate pension scheme, and there are some dangers to that. You know?
What do you mean they want to start a pension scheme by themselves? You mean
Yeah.
the workers wouldn't be
The
involved?
workers would be involved, but the rules. When we asked for the rules and we got the rules, we're not happy with the rules. You know, and you know, whilst we commend Separate for doing this, we are now in discussions to see how we can have the thing balanced. Because one of the things, let us take the bauxite company, UC Rusal Alumina Jamaica Limited. They had a scheme from the time when Alcan started. It was the most massive pension scheme you have in Jamaica, run by the Manchester Pension Fund. And they dismantled the scheme, give back the workers some contribution. Those workers who were eligible for pension, they had a sum put aside to deal with them. And there was some actual arrangement put in place. But the problem was that the surplus, they really wanted to get the surplus. And they went as far as to the Privy Council to get the surplus. Now,
Well, let
you
me
see,
ask you something.
Russell,
Hold on a second there. So the people who were on pension or to go
yeah,
on pension, what happened to them? The people who were
they are
on
on
pension,
pension. They,
yeah?
they are getting their pension. There was
Okay.
an actual evaluation of the scheme, and those who were entitled to pension got their pension. In fact, between the time it took to go to the Privy Council and settle the matter, quite a few of the workers died. But those who were eligible for pension, those who were vested, etc., they got their pension. But the point is that the company who never contributed a penny to the scheme, what they wanted, what they had their eye on the surplus. And they went to the Privy
So
Council.
they weren't doing the company's matching side of it with the employees.
Yeah,
But you
that,
said
that,
they
that is
didn't
not a
contribute a
problem.
penny to the scheme. I don't understand that.
No, you see, Rusal Alumina Jamaica Limited took over the operation of Alcan
Okay,
in
yes.
2010 or thereabout, right? So
Okay.
having came and saw the scheme, what they wanted was the surplus. And you know, you get the surplus when you do the actual valuation, and you have enough set aside for future pension, and what left. Eh? That is what the company wanted. But let me just say something general about pension. When you take, for example, the security guard, it's a disaster. You have over 25,000 private security guards across the country. A lot of them are retiring now, having served 20 and 30 years, or more than that. and they have no pension.
Mhm.
And
But
this is
Vincent Morrison, I can't make it go much further there, because one of the people we have to blame there is the trades unions for the whole
no,
pension situation. Trades unions were
you,
much stronger
you,
30 and 40
you,
years ago, but you didn't fight for pensions. You fought for some increases, and people felt good that they get 20% and 30% over 4 or 5 years, and inflation was going to knock that out. You all never had the vision to go for pension. Am I right
what
or
I
am I
can tell
wrong?
you, what I can tell you, my friend, all the companies that are unionized in Jamaica have pension schemes. The problem is those companies that don't have the trade unions, for example, the shops and offices, the security guard industry, the hotel sector, you know, these are some of the places that pension is absent. And this is where you have the pension poverty raising its head. But the big companies, for example, cement, one of the best pension schemes you can think about. And I can name all the companies that have unions, have pensions. In fact, we just got into two companies in the security guard industry. We got into the security guards at the US Embassy, G4S guards, man. And one of the first thing we got there was a pension scheme for the 240 workers at the US Embassy. We got into the British High Commission, right, Hawkeye. And we got the companies to agree to a contribution of 3% to the pension scheme.
So
So
these are
don't
these
blame this.
are these are breakthrough areas for in terms of security guards. 'Cause you were just mentioning that lots of security
Yeah,
guards are now retiring since this industry started and have nothing.
the vast majority. Those, is about nearly 20,000 guards out there. And when you hear some horror story, we have been saying to Jamaica and to the workers that picnic is not pension. You cannot sit by and say, boy, your picnic are going to look after you when you reach retirement age. Pension is replacing your income. That's what they decide to do. It must be doing.
And before I go
And
back to Grace McLean, would you support the stance of some people that the government should make pension arrangements compulsory, even for
absolutely,
small companies?
absolutely, absolutely. And I had actually had discussions with Mark Golden and his team. And that was one of the issues we put to them and said, look, this must happen, along with things like the fixed term contract and some other issues.
Grace
But
McLean, can you come back in there? How do you
Yes.
look at that whole situation with a whole set of industries not having any pension, like the security guards you mentioned?
Right. I'm gonna correct Mr. Morrison on one thing. The hotel sector there's a tourism pension plan for the hotel workers. Um,
Government set up tourism
I'm aware of
pension
that.
plan.
you're
I am
aware of
aware of that.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Because
aware.
you said there was no pension, or was it
But
union you're referring to?
it's not, is some of the big hotels do have the scheme, but some of the smaller properties
Don't.
don't.
Okay.
Some of the workers who work in the industry, not directly, don't
Right.
have it, right?
Contract.
But it's
So they're
available
not
to
I
them though.
understand.
interested.
It's available
Is
to
it
them though. That's
is
not
it that they're
this.
not interested? The company is not interested. Those smaller tourism
It's available to them.
entities, because
Let,
it's
let, let, let us take the food security for workers.
okay.
The only thing that I am left to do is to shut it down, call a strike, because the management refused to put in a scheme for those workers. Now, those workers are essentially a part of the tourism sector. They are the first contact with tourism when them come and when them leave the country. And I had discussion with the permanent secretary in Mr. Barrett's office about 2 years ago, and his office agreed that those workers should be part of the scheme. But the
And
board just plainly refused to implement the scheme. And I tell you, within 2 weeks, I'm going to call him off of the job for pension.
If you don't make any
Within
progress.
within 2 weeks,
All right, Ms. McLean,
I'm going to call him off.
Ms. McLean, how do you see those areas
yes,
now? What
just
would be
just
your
no
advice to those
support.
like Go ahead.
Repeat that.
Go ahead.
Just to support what Mr. Morrison is saying in terms of the security guards, in addition to not having any pension, they don't have any health insurance.
That is true.
And it was shocking to me because when I discovered that, because I'm saying you have what, 25,000 security guards in Jamaica, Mr. Morrison?
That's the estimated number, yes.
Right. And if
It
you
could be
have
more or
these
less.
men and women working without health insurance, that can't be good. And then they retire without health insurance, without a pension. How are they coping in retirement? Right? And part of, in terms of the authorities speaking to poverty alleviation and poverty reduction, a significant number of persons are poor. So there's a difference between poverty and being poor, right?
Working poor.
And based
Remember, the
on
security guard wages are minimum wages, you know. There's not much
exactly. So
minimum wage.
if in terms of poverty alleviation, they're gonna be retiring in poverty. 18% of Jamaicans who are 60 years and older are living in poverty right now. These 18% of Jamaicans 60 years and older are living in poverty. Now,
One in five.
if we are not concerned about these workers who, and I speak again in terms of the security officers because their lives are on the line every single day, and they have no health insurance, no pension, and then they retire broke. That is increasing the number of the aging population. We're an aging population, right? And what is happening is that, as the World Bank has said in a study that they did, that the developing countries run the risk, right, of becoming poor by they retire. Right? So before they can become rich, they'll be poor for a very long time.
Ms. McLean, I have 1 minute to give you to give us.
I got a
give us
list
hope
in the
for
other day from Montego
coming
Bay.
back to you. I'm coming back to you, Vincent, for your 1 minute. Give us your a way out for especially security guards, the household helpers, the whole large numbers of people who low wages and have no pension arrangements. Ms. McLean, you have 45 seconds for that. She's not hearing us. All right, Vincent, you go ahead.
No, we have been kicking the can down the road when it comes to pension, when it comes to medical coverage for workers across the country. We have a parliament, and I think if we can't get some sort of social contract with the employers through the Employers Federation or whatever, I think Parliament should make the first move. Put something in place. I mean, we put in housing trust, it works. We put in a number of other things, and it works. Parliament have a right to protect people. We can't continue to be building poor houses. Okay. It's not good. It's not fair.
It's a job for the Minister of Labor, and we're just talking about some of the things that need to be, some of the vision that doesn't seem to be there yet. But Ms. McLean,
right. Can you repeat the question because the internet was unstable?
No, I'm sorry. We're closing out because our time is running out, and we wanted you to just give us some hope for the sectors, the minimum wage people and so on, about how they should go about it. But time is run out on us. I just want to remind everyone that you can watch this podcast or portions of it at any time on the Frankly Speaking Jamaica YouTube channel. We invite you to subscribe to the channel. Please share the podcast. Thanks to all our guests today. In our first segment, we had Professor Anna Perkins, and on this pension matter, we had trade unionist Vincent Morrison. He joined us late. He had issues. Why do we have so many issues with the internet in Jamaica? That's another one we're going to have to take up. Winnie and I talk about this after.
We had some issues with it during the election. You remember? There's some issues with internet during the election.
Why do we keep having so many issues? And in the schools, there have been so much of a time. And financial advisor and pensions expert Grace McLean of BPM Financial. Thanks to regular panelists Desmond Richards and Winnie Anderson Brown. Special thanks to Joshua Black of Joshua Black Media Services. I'm Franklin McKnight. Until then.